Hi, welcome back to our conversation. Last time we talked a little bit about scarcity. We talked about children and the scarcity mindset and really what happens if you don't have enough and how to talk to children about that. Today I want to share with you a couple of ideas and a couple concepts on the opposite, the abundance theory. You know, when you think about abundance, it's really we have enough, sometimes even too much. And how you handle those situations with your children can be very, very imperative to their development and how they view money growing up. So some kids in those situations, if you have enough, they can view money as growing on trees, that you just buy anything and everything they want. We don't want spoiled kids. You know, I can relate to this growing up. When I say hungry, I don't mean, physically starving, but just hungry for something better successfully for myself. Graduating from college early, doing the things that I needed to do because I knew money was not growing on trees and I didn't want to be a burden to anybody. I wanted to take personal responsibility. Sometimes it's difficult for me to shape my children in the same mold that I came from because that hunger is not something they're feeling the same way. Their house is a little different. Their experiences are a little different. And that's a challenge for any father, for any mother, growing up with maybe a different situation than what you grew up with. What we find is there are ways to talk about money and ways to create the conversation to add a level or a layer of success. One of them that's really, really important is principles. Teaching your children principles on how you made good decisions to get where you're at. Understanding the value of investing, saving for the future, understanding that just because you have a little bit more doesn't mean you spend every penny you have. These are basic money principles. And then there's life principles. Like each month when you get paid, what are you doing with it? A certain amount is giving back. How are you showing your children that you're giving back? Is it just that you're writing a check and it's empty? Or are you taking them to something that gives them perspective? Last week, 2 weeks ago, we went to the Boys and Girls Club event that I'm a big part of as a corporate board member. And we sat at a table as a family. And my kids got to see a couple children that asked for an extra dinner. And they asked me about that when we got home. And I explained to them that not everybody has more than enough food on the table every single night. And they know that and they understand that, but they don't feel it. But when you're in that situation and you're not just giving back with a check or cash or at church, you're actually showing them and they're meeting people and they're seeing that we're all the same. We just might come from a different background. And how we get to where we want to go is really, really important. Money and the conversation around money is extremely important with the principle of giving back. The mindsets we talked about with scarcity are the same here too. Saying we can't afford stuff, being negative, not a positive, not yelling at them all the time and saying, hey, do you know what I had to do to get to this? Do you understand what we did to get here? No, they don't understand. And if you think they're going to, you've lost it. I will tell you, there are many a days I wish they did. There are even some times where I've said exactly what I just said to you. How do you think I know to say it to you? I understand it. I get it. I feel that way too. And I've felt that way over and over and over again. I want them to understand that the biggest difference between me and them or you and them, if they have a little more abundance than maybe you thought, is after about $70,000, $75,000, all of your personal needs are met. Research shows that your roof over your head, the food on the table, they're all met. Happiness doesn't increase. Now, can money buy happiness? There's a lot of comments below that could create a great conversation as to whether money can buy or not buy happiness. What it can do is it can make the playing field a little different. And so what I try to teach my children, and the takeaway from this conversation today is, you may not have to start at the same level I did. You may not have to be at the same spot that I was at. But I want you to bring the same work ethic, the same grind, the same goal-oriented value and vision to that day in, day out opportunity that you have, and you're going to be more successful than I ever dreamed of. And ultimately, as parents, whether we grow up without enough or we grow up with a little too much, how we handle that and how we teach our children is a really, really good indicator of how successful they will be when they get to the same space with their children. Thanks for joining me today on this conversation. I feel like this is something we could talk a lot about, and I'd love to expand this conversation and really get your input on what you're doing to be successful in this area. I'm Scott Danner with Freedom Street Partners. Thank you for joining us for today's conversation, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.